As a reporter in search of four characters, I've come to an underground vault, 150 feet beneath King's Cross in central London. It houses a treasure trove of old films, some of them containing unseen footage from four of the iconic figures who each played central roles in the tragi-comedy of Britain in the 1970s. It was a bad hair decade. Students were revolting, militant unions were striking.
Get a bloody photograph of this!
Force was met with force. Asset strippers were flourishing as inflation and unemployment rocketed. And there was even talk of the army taking over. It was an age of paranoia, with a febrile feeling that Britain was on the brink. All four of the characters in this film felt in their very different ways that they had a mission to mend broken Britain. The first is a senior general, Sir Walter Walker, who was setting up his own private army to save the country from the catastrophe of a takeover by the Marxists.
No one has the guts to do anything. Year after year, we are held to ransom. We are sick and tired of this lack of leadership.
Our second character is Lord Longford, self-appointed guardian of the nation's morals. He pursued his campaign against pornography with such fervour that the media christened him Lord Porn.
Well, I mean, teenage perverts. I mean, that's presumably not a serious study.
Well, biased against pornography. Surely every decent person is biased against pornography. You might say it's simply being biased against film.
The third character is Sir Robert Mark, who, as London's top policeman, was on a mission to clean up Scotland Yard and get rid of every corrupt detective.
A bent detective harms the whole fabric of public confidence in the police. And so far as I'm concerned, he will always be a prime target, and he can look to no mercy at all from me.
The last is Sir Jimmy Goldsmith, the tycoon with a complex business and love life, who believed the media were plotting to destroy capitalism.
You lied. That's what I'm trying to show, and what I intend to prove on this program.
At the time, I was making some of these films as a reporter for the BBC.
Michael Cockrell is down at Downing Street brushing the hair out of his eyes. Michael, good morning again.
Good morning, David.
What's going on there?
We're running out of time.
Yes,
While making documentaries in the 1970s, I met or filmed each of the conspicuous characters featured in this programme. The inside stories of the four men shed new light on the lost world of the 70s. My first contentious character from the 70s is the British General Sir Walter Walker. He was to become notorious when he tried to set up his own private army in Britain. Until 1972, he was Commander-in-Chief of NATO's northern forces, who formed the thin blue line against the Red Army of Soviet Russia.
I, as a soldier, know there's a great temptation to the Soviets towards aggression. We've got to close this gap between what we as soldiers know to be the position on the ground and what the man in the street is told by the politicians. I'm all right, Jack is no recipe for survival.
The Ministry of Defence banned this documentary, which has not been seen before on national television. General Walker had allowed the cameras to film how NATO prepared for war.
The headquarters you're about to see is one of these preparations.
Britain's top military expert on the Soviet threat had first made his name fighting communist subversion in the jungles of the Far East. Now he was in charge of rehearsing doomsday scenarios in case the Cold War was suddenly to turn hot.
Here, if World War did come, are the men who would fight it. And in the chair, General Sir Walter Walker, Commander-in-Chief, Allied Forces, Northern Europe.
General Walker retired from the army to Somerset in the early 70s, and his conviction that the country was going to the dogs grew stronger every day. In 1974, you didn't quite need to be a telegraph-reading general to fear that Britain was becoming ungovernable. The year had started with a miners' strike, the three-day week, and regular power blackouts. Ted Heath's government had been brought down, and Harold Wilson's minority Labour government was seen by many people to be at the mercy of communist trade union leaders, militants and subversives. For General Sir Walter Walker, the picture was all too familiar.
As a soldier, one had to study not only one's external enemy, but the enemy within, and I've been studying the enemy within. These people defy Parliament, they defy the courts, and they defy the rules of law. And if you plot to destroy this present system, what are you doing?
General Walker's son, Anthony, who himself was a regular army officer, has never seen this film of his father before.
What are you doing? You are committing a form of treason.
This reminds me of getting a rocket for a bad school report. He was very passionate about it, and I think he just felt that he was probably saying what a lot of other people thought, but were too frightened to say it.
General Walker knew that something had to be done. He wrote a letter to the Daily Telegraph, which the paper published. In it he said, "Why is the country in such a mess? The answer is complete lack of inspiring and trusted political leadership. The communist Trojan horse is in our midst, with its fellow travellers wriggling their maggoty way inside its belly. The country yearns for a true dynamic and patriotic leader. Such a man must be produced before it's too late." At his home in Somerset, General Walker receives an immediate response to his letter from like-minded Telegraph readers who contact him from all over the country.
The fact of the matter is, why did all these people, in the first instance, write to me in their thousands and telephone me for 3 months? We were getting 100 calls a day, saying, for goodness sake, tell us what to do. Organize us into something. We can see what's happening in this country. No one has the guts to do anything.
Colonel Patrick Mercer, who served 25 years in the army from the mid-70s onwards, is now a Tory MP.
Year after year, we are held to ransom. We are sick and tired of this lack of leadership. Will you please organize something?
Fiery rhetoric. No two ways about that. Walter Walker and I, of course, served in the same regiment, so I have a great interest in this individual. I think that Walter Walker saw himself as being the saviour of the country. That as society spiralled downwards, as he would have it, that there was going to be this charismatic, this convincing leader who was ready to step into the breach.
A number of people asked me, friends in the army, or people who, like me, had retired from the army or just retired from the army. More of a joke, what's happening? Is your father going to take over the country? It was said more like that. A lot of people asked me, and I said, well, actually, I don't know.
General Walker decides to organise the people who've written to him into his own unofficial army. It will have regional command centres. They'll be run by controllers hand-picked by the general.
Just to show you a sort of cross-section, here we have a flying club with 25 excellent pilots and, of course, light aircraft for communication purposes. Here we have from Reading, a merchant banker who's had previous intelligence experience. A man from Carmarthen who is in the investigation service, previous intelligence experience.
General Walker's mind goes back to how, as NATO commander, he'd organised his fellow generals to confront the Soviet nuclear threat. He chooses to deploy the same methods for the new battle against the enemy within.
Peter. Hello. Nice to see you. Thank you for all the bumps. Robert, General. Congratulations on that show last night. Absolutely first class. Alex?
Yeah, General.
Thank you very much for
about tonight.
Thank you very much.
Surrounded by his top brass, all former comrades in arms, the general produces his latest sit-rep.
Here is the up-to-date situation now. For example, that packet contains people who I think are fit to be controllers, which Robert is now placing on the map. So I have sifted the controllers from the non-controllers, and it covers England, Scotland and Wales.
The command group discuss exactly when their unofficial army should move into action against the threat of a Marxist takeover in Britain.
I think that we have to decide when does law and order break down, and when perhaps it may be dangerous for the palace.
In the Second World War, Major Alex Greenwood had been aide-de-camp to General Claude Auchinleck in India. There, Auchinleck served under the Queen's uncle, Lord Mountbatten, who was then Supreme Commander in Asia, and the two big guns became great friends. Major Greenwood wasn't prepared to talk candidly about what he and Sir Walter Walker had been up to until recently.
I thought the trains would fail to run, London Airport would not function anymore, the ports would be stagnant, there would be complete chaos in the land. And Lord Mountbatten rang up General Sir Walter Walker one evening and said, "If you want any help from me, will you let me know?"
Goodbye.
General Sir Walter Walker had prepared a sort of speech which the Queen might read out on the BBC, asked the people to stand behind the armed forces as there was a breakdown of law and order and the government could not keep the unions in control. And the first thing you do if you want to control a country is to take over the airports, take over the BBC and protect Buckingham Palace with the Queen. If you've got those three things, you're pretty well in control, you know.
Major Alexander Greenwood in interviews said Lord Mountbatten rang up General Sir Walter Walker one evening and said, "If you want any help from me, let me know."
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. I mean, they knew each other from a long time ago, going back to Burma days.
I mean, the suggestion is Lord Mountbatten himself might have played a role in some kind of military takeover, and he could be that figure that your father was saying was needed, the strong leader.
Possibly, yes. He was probably, possibly, but again, you know, I wouldn't comment on that one.
General Walker publicly denied he was thinking of staging a coup.
Certainly not. It is a smear campaign perpetrated by the media and perpetrated by the enemy within.
When General Walker's Chief of Staff, Colonel Robert Butler, arrives with his latest report from the battlefront, the General has bad news. He's discovered a new enemy within, lurking in a most unlikely quarter.
Jolly glad to see that your letter got in the Telegraph.
Did it? I haven't heard it.
Well, it's in, but unfortunately there's another article in which really, you know, for a right-wing paper like the Daily Telegraph, really is beyond the pale. I mean, this is using ridicule as a weapon. I'm bloody angry. However, we can talk about that later.
You mean they published my letter?
They published your letter, yeah, in a long way. Uncut. And then this chap came and interviewed me on Saturday night. You know, he pressurized me to do it. And I thought the Telegraph was trying to alert the public to the threat not only from without, but from within. And he's made the whole thing look ridiculous. And this is the first time that any reporter of the Daily Telegraph has betrayed my confidence.
Well, I wouldn't
so I'm
expect
pretty angry.
it from the Daily Telegraph. I would have expected it from certain other papers, maybe.
Yeah.
If you think Walter Walker sounds like something from the wilder shores of British conspiracy, then think again. This is Sandhurst, the British Army Officers Training Academy. I made a film here in 1975 for Panorama. One of the officers I filmed was the 19-year-old Patrick Mercer, who's now a Tory MP. He gave a lecture to his fellow students as part of his training.
We've seen several different guerrilla groups operate in this country, and we've seen what damage and fear they can bring into the country. Now, can you see the point I'm trying to make? It can escalate so easily. The lines of supply, which people like the IRA use, can be tapped. And there are powers outside this country which are willing to let them be tapped, who will be glad to see insurgency, civil strife break out in this country.
The young officer's scenario of a breakdown of civil order in Britain is acted out in a remarkable Sandhurst training exercise in internal security techniques. The Sandhurst officers arrive at a deserted army camp in Wiltshire, where a sinister picture of Britain in the near future has been created. The official Sandhurst narrative for the exercise runs like this. Economic and political chaos is reigning in Britain due to the failures of consecutive Labour and Tory minority governments. Unemployment is rife, and the richer parts of the United Kingdom are thinking in terms of independence. Scotland has already seceded, and the government has sent the army to deal with the political violence in Ogbourne St George, where 2 policemen have been killed.
Michael, you said in your commentary that this was a remarkable exercise setting, and I think it is remarkable. It is remarkably blunt, it's remarkably unsubtle in the setting, and it's remarkably frightening. Later on in my career, when I was setting these sorts of exercises, I wouldn't have dreamed of being so political.
In the exercise, the army is trying to keep the peace between 2 political factions in the Wiltshire town. One group is led by Eric the Red, a union militant who's played by a Sandhurst lecturer.
And I said, listen here, sunshine, unless you get your people off the street, there'll be trouble.
Piss off, army!
They are mainly a left-wing organisation who draw their support from the unemployed and the lower classes. The other political faction is the Ogbourne Loyalist Front, who are located mainly in this area here. They are a principally right-wing organisation and are led by a man called Simpson, who is also the Member of Parliament for Ogbourne.
Democracy does not come from the barrel of a gun. Democracy comes from you.
Keith Simpson, who played the neo-fascist MP for Ogbourne in the training exercise, was a Sandhurst lecturer who's now a real-life Tory MP.
You see, art imitates life and life imitates art.
And I, as your legal representative, as your Member of Parliament, will make certain that you get democracy.
God, how embarrassing. Mind you, some of my colleagues are like that.
We have these soldiers here, these super boy scouts, who have so far failed to deal with terrorists at the other end of the town. We shall interpret what law and order means.
Now, let me tell you, just after this documentary panorama was shown, there were questions in Parliament.
Some MPs felt the Sandhurst exercise was provocatively party political and showed the army being trained for possible intervention in Britain. But Keith Simpson says the exercise was actually aimed at preparing officers for Northern Ireland, though he accepts it gave a different impression.
This was against the background of great domestic and international unrest, suspicion by people that Harold Wilson and the trade unions were controlled by the communists, and of course there were some ex-military people, the famous General Sir Walter Walker, some former members of the security service, and old Tufton Buftons in clubs in London who muttered about the fact that, you know, time for a coup to perhaps get rid of these people. And it's interesting to see how an exercise like this, which was orientated towards Northern Ireland, nevertheless, when shown, given the background of 1975, the assumption was by a lot of people watching it, which was that, yes, the army was preparing for this kind of thing.
The passing out parade for the class of 75 at Sandhurst, where more than 40 years earlier Walter Walker had been trained. He'd come to see himself as a man on a white horse who would save the country from the Red Terror. But the media searchlight revealed he was commanding little more than a paper army. And as old soldiers do, General Walker just